Before we start chapter 13, I want to thank you guys for how good you've been doing with this. We are just about halfway through this book, so not much left to go. This is a series of 3 books. I'm going to be doing the next book probably after holiday break, but you guys have been doing a really great job with it. I just want to thank you for that. Thanks. So, chapter 13, the Experts. The next morning, they had another surprise. This one came from Miss Hussey. She asked her students to think about what they might have done if the thief had written them a personal letter before the theft took place, a letter delivered to their home. You mean like the one of the 3 letters that the thief talked about? asked Calder. Not necessarily. We're just inventing a situation, Miss Hussey answered, with some of her "we're in this together and it might be dangerous" tone. Hearing the undercurrent of excitement, her class grew quiet. Miss Hussey went on to explain that this letter would have asked anonymously for their help. Say the thief had offered lots of money, promised that the cause was honorable, and, last but not least, threatened their life if they showed the letter to anyone else. Starting to sound a little bit familiar. Petra scribbled Calder a quick note. The letter that blew away from me that day on Harper Avenue, it sounded just like this, except I didn't get to finish it, and I don't remember the threat. As Calder read Petra's note, Miss Hussey was saying, "This is a question of judgment. It's not clear in your letter if the thief is good or bad. I'm interested in what you might do." And Calder, "Could I keep that, please? You know I don't allow those kind of communications during class." Calder flashed an uh-oh look at Petra, who had slumped down in her seat. He stepped carefully over Denise's outstretched foot as he handed Miss Hussey the note. She popped it in her pocket. Although she knew Miss Hussey wouldn't be angry, Petra had a queasy feeling. How could the letter Miss Hussey was asking them to imagine sound so similar to that one about the art and the crime? But maybe this was just another coincidence, pure and simple. There had to be so many lately. Or maybe Miss Hussey had found the letter blowing around too. Of course! The thought was a relief. Petra sat back up. Miss Hussey wrote some more of their responses on the blackboard. Go directly to the police and get protection. Hide the letter and try to figure out who the writer was. Change the locks on all of their doors. Do what was asked. Have an adventure and hope you weren't breaking the law. Tell a friend and make them promise not to tell, and then talk about what to do. Remember when we did back in chapter 1, I asked some of you guys what you do? The answers were pretty similar, so it sounds like Miss Hussey's class is pretty smart, like you guys. Miss Hussey listened closely to what the kids were saying, as she always did. At the last suggestion, her eyes suddenly filled with tears. Then, just as quickly, they were all gone. She was muttering something about dirt in her eye. Out in the hallway, Calder looked upset. He said to Petra, "Do you suppose Miss Hussey got one of those 3 letters? And dropped it or something, and maybe you picked it up? What if she's kind of looking for help by asking what we think? But why would the thief ask her to help him? I mean, she's only a 6th-grade teacher." Petra's voice sounded unsure. Good people sometimes get caught up in bad things. Calder was thinking about how Tommy and Frog, and about Petra's dad, about Vermeer himself. Should Miss Hussey be added to the list? As if he or she were playing on Petra and Calder's fears, the thief resurfaced the next morning. A full-page ad appeared in the newspapers and around the world. After the thief's first published letter, the fuss over a lady writing had been tremendous. The catchy phrase, "You will come to agree with me?" The message found inside the packing box after the painting was stolen had been picked up everywhere. It appeared spray-painted on subway cars, on walls, and on the sides of buildings in New York City, in Chicago, in Tokyo, in Amsterdam. It turned up on cheap T-shirts in English, Dutch, French, Spanish, even Japanese. Demonstrations were organized outside several museums, and protesters were photographed marching and shouting. There was footage on the evening news of signs that said things like, "Tell the truth, get her back," or "X the experts," or "Viva Vermeer, solamente la verdad." Museum officials had days when they had to scurry protected by police through the noisy crowds to get to work. It was after the first wave of passion began to die down that the first full-page ad appeared. It said simply, "You are doing the right thing." Sure enough, the response from the public was instantaneous. There was more mail. There was more publicity. The next time the public seemed to be losing interest, another message appeared, saying, "Be patient. Do not give up." This also was followed by the flood of letters. The ad that Calder and Petra read before school that morning in the Chicago Tribune said, "You have come to agree with me. They will come to agree with you." In tiny print below the letter, the newspaper editors, under pressure from the FBI, the police, and committee of museum directors, explained that they would not publish any more of the mysterious advertisements. This was the last. The first advertisement was mailed from New York. A week after the theft, a second from Florence. A week after that, the third from Amsterdam. The thief almost seemed to be showing off, thumbing his nose at the authorities. Miss Husey said nothing to Petra that morning about the note. She had pocketed the day before. Maybe she hadn't read it. Petra thought with relief. Class began with a discussion about the thief's last ad. Miss Husey asked, "Why do people assume the thief is just one person? I mean, couldn't this be a group?" She was absent-mindedly twisting her ponytail around one thumb. Calder raised his hand. "Don't the police think 3 other people are helping?" "I don't know," Miss Husey said. "Do they? I guess it depends on what is considered helping and whether those 3 letters even existed." She looked so genuinely concerned that Petra and Calder began to wonder if they had jumped to silly conclusions the day before. One thing was clear to the 6th graders. In spite of their discussion earlier in that year with Miss Husey, the letter, as a form of communication, was very much alive. And that is the end of chapter 13. You guys are doing really, really great with this. Please keep it up. Have a good one.